morning, everybody. I hope you all had the best Christmas. I hope you're having a great new year. It's been a while since I've been online, and so I felt it was just so important to take a break over the holidays and spend time focusing on my family. I feel like sometimes I just kind of push my little girls off to the side because I'm so busy doing all of these things. And I'm sure you probably feel that way sometimes too with your kids. And then you get that mom guilt setting in. And anyway, I don't like it. So I had just a great time spending time with them over the holidays. And my husband had some shoulder surgery, so been kind of nursing him back to health, and it's just been awesome. I mean, not his surgery, of course, but like it's just been nice having that really focused family time, and I hope that you have been able to have that. I'm coming to you today because a few weeks back, I actually led a devotion with some ladies in my church. They came over to the house. It was actually a progressive dinner. I don't know if you've ever heard of anything like that. I had never heard of anything like that until coming to our current church. And all of the ladies get together every Christmas for an evening for this progressive dinner. So they move around from one house to the next for different parts of the meal. And it is just the most fun thing. I had a great time. And so this year, it's my second year doing it. So I hosted dessert, which I love dessert. If you know me, I'm a Deconic, and that means sweets are key to our happiness, or a key, I guess. Anyway, so I also also led the devotion, and I was so excited to do it. And I just thought it was such a good message, especially timely considering some of the stuff that's happened, or that have some of the things that have been said recently in 2019. So it's all about women and who we're called to be as women. And so I just wanted to share that with you today. So if you have, it's like 5 or 10 minutes. So if you have a few minutes to sit down and listen to this and shut your phones off and shut everything else off if you're a lady. And I guess guys can listen to this too. It's not secret or private, but this is really focused for women. And so I just wanted to take a few minutes to just, breathe into you today. And I hope that this is really encouraging. So as I was thinking about what I was going to say for this devotion, I was thinking about how much I love all of the women that I am in Bible study with and that I go to church with. And I just, especially this Bible study group, I just love them so much. They are just such an encouragement. And I just really encourage you, if you aren't plugged into a small group or into a women's group, find one, because it's just so amazing to have this group of women, all ages, all stages of life, coming together and just loving on each other, mentoring each other, giving advice, with different things that come up, praying for one another. It's just really life-giving. So I was thinking about how much I love these women and how much they have just really been a positively impacted my life. And so I also started thinking about how much God loves women, but how our role as women can be really messy and confusing, because on one hand, society tells us to be brave and be bold and take a stand for what you believe. And then on the other hand, we're told by the Bible and in churches and from other people that we're supposed to be quiet and submissive. So what does that mean for us? Because those are two really contradictory roles, right? Where are we to fall in that, and who does God want us to be? So when I was thinking about all of this, I got a little bit nervous because I go to a Southern Baptist church, and I didn't want this message to be taken the wrong way. And as a Southern Baptist, women aren't pastors. They aren't allowed to be leaders in the church in that way. And so that's been one rub for me, because I grew up, I've been in various different churches, but I grew up predominantly Methodist. I'm a Methodist pastor's daughter. Women can be pastors. And so, there's this debate on what our role is for women in the church. And so I want to read to you, well, first of all, I want to say this is not supposed to be, I'm not sharing this with you to try to stir up emotions or to cause debate or any of that, which I'm guess it can be because this is kind of a hot button issue recently. But I just wanted to encourage you to find who God's calling you to be and embrace that. So I'm going to read a couple of verses to you today. This first one is from 1 Corinthians. It's chapter 14, verses 34 and 35. And this is Paul speaking. He says, "Women should remain silent in the churches. They are not allowed to speak, but must be in submission as the law says. If they want to inquire about something, they should ask their own husbands at home, for it's disgraceful for a woman to speak in the church." Yikes. So what does that mean? I think it's really important here to consider the context. Because right here, Paul's saying, women, keep your mouth shut, right? But the context is important, and that's lacking. So we need to talk about that. So Paul, I just have a few notes here. I want to make sure I don't forget anything. Paul, first of all, believed that Jesus was coming back at any moment. He knew that there was urgency. Like, he had to get this message out as quickly as possible because he wanted to save these people. So he needed, well, first of all, I want to explain that women in that time had not been allowed to go to church. The rabbis refused to preach or to teach women. So these men, their husbands, had this foundation. They had an understanding and a background. So they were coming here with a ton of questions because they didn't know. They didn't know about the word or God or all of the details and things that the men knew and had been taught. So they're coming here. They're excited, right? Like you're learning something new. You're so excited and you have a lot of questions. That's a good thing. But Paul was like, just hold on. Wait until you get home and ask your husbands. They'll fill in the blanks. Just while you're here, just be quiet and listen to me because I have to get this message out to you. So that's the first point. But also in Corinthians chapter 11, verse 5, Paul talks about women who pray and prophesize. So he never actually said, don't ever speak. He said, wait until you have the knowledge and the wisdom to speak. So they needed to learn and understand God's wisdom first, and then they could talk in church because they had something to contribute. Does that make sense? I hope so, because he's not saying keep your mouth shut forever. He's just saying keep your mouth shut until you know and understand and are able to share. So another thing is there were a lot of women in that time. So I mentioned before that some women had no background in understanding because they had never been to church. But there's other women who are coming here who were leaders, and but in their pagan churches. So they too still had a lot of questions, and they were smart and they were ready to learn and share. But they too, like the other women, they still had to learn the foundations first. So that's the first thing I wanted to point out. But so once we know God and we've accepted Christ as our Savior, it's our responsibility to open our mouths and to not be silent in church. We are to, whether it's church or ministering to someone or whatever, like once you know and understand God and His glory, it's your duty to go out and share that with people. That's what God wants. So as you read and study the Bible, and maybe you've never done that, we're all at different places in our faith, if you have one at all. But if you don't have faith, or maybe you just don't have a deep understanding of the Bible, read it and learn and grow. Because as you do, you will see how from front to back, God uses women in some huge and awesome ways. And so I just wanted to point out a few of them because they're awesome and we should be encouraged by it. So one of them is Deborah. Deborah served Israel as a wise judge. And I think it's also important to point out here the time period. This is a time when women had not a lot of rights. They were, in their culture seen as subservient, like they were lesser than men in their culture. So for Deborah to be a wise judge and to be recognized that way by men was huge. So that was number one. Another one is Esther. She prayed and fasted and risked her life to get in front of the king of Persia in order to save Israel. Jesus taught women, even risked his, I already mentioned that one. I'm just reading through this list because I don't want to forget these because they're all so awesome. But anyway, Jesus taught women when I mentioned earlier Jewish rabbis refused to, but he still did because he saw value in them and recognized that. He even included them, a small group of women who traveled with him in his disciples, and he taught them and spent time with them and fed them. When Lazarus died, you probably know that story. Lazarus died and came back to life later, right? But when he died, the women wept and Jesus cried. And some people think that he cried because of Lazarus, but that's so not true. He knew where Lazarus was going, and he knew that he was going to be in a much better place in heaven with God, his Father. But he cried for the women because they were upset. Jesus revealed himself as the Messiah and taught the Samaritan woman at the well. He touched women. That's huge because, as I mentioned earlier, remember, context, culture. At this time, men should not touch women. That was not okay unless it was his wife. But Jesus did it because he loved women, and he did it to heal them and teach them, and that's huge. Who did Jesus first reveal himself to after his resurrection? He comes out and he speaks to Mary, a woman. Who did God bring Christ to us through? A woman, Mary, a different Mary. But he could have just put Jesus here and just, he was here. Like, God has all authority to do whatever he wants, but he chose to bring him to us through a woman. So these are just really big ones. And finally, another one that I really want to focus in on right now is, first I'm going to read to you from Genesis. This is Genesis. I love the Old Testament. I know it gets a bad rap because it's, boring or fiery God or whatever, but it is a book, or it is a part of the Bible of God's relentless love. Like, he is all forgiving and everything. Anyway, I'm not talking about that today. I just love the Old Testament. But anyway, okay, so this is Genesis chapter 17, verses 15 and 16. It says, God also said to Abraham, as for Sarah, your wife, you are no longer to call her Sarai. Her name will be Sarah. I will bless her and will surely give you a son by her. I will bless her so that she will be the mother of nations. Kings of peoples will come from her. I love this because, a lot of times in the past, before I started thinking about this message, I was thinking, when I would read this, I would think, wow, God blessed these old people and gave them a baby, and they're 100 years old, and here they are, like, carrying, Sarah's carrying this baby at 100 years old, or 90, now I forget. Either way, she's old, like super old, and she's bringing this baby. I can't imagine. Childbirth is hard, and sleepless nights, and ugh. Anyway, but that's not what I want to focus on today. I want to focus on how God didn't just bless Abraham. He also blessed Sarai. He made a covenant with her and promised her to be the mother of all nations. And so Sarah was ordained by God. Israel didn't just come from Abraham. He needed a partner, Sarah. And so Israel came from Abraham and Sarah, man and woman. Together they birthed and raised this family. This family became nations. Eventually the Messiah came through Sarah. So Sarah was a key player in all of that. God highly regards women. He calls us to be women after his heart in our homes, in our faith, in his kingdom. We're co-laborers and should be sharing the gospel in our daily lives. Each of us have been given spiritual gifts, and we should be figuring out what they are so that we can glorify God, because we're created as that key player in his big mega plan. So your gifts are good enough. He gave them to you to use and not to hide away. So speak up. God, he just does such big things through us if you let him. So open yourselves up and see what he'll do through you. I pray that you feel encouraged to embrace your role as a woman of faith, a woman for God. And I want you to think about this year as we're just starting this new year, and you may have a word that's going to guide you, or a new resolution, something that you want to achieve, whatever it is. But as you're thinking through all of that, think about the woman that God's calling you to be. So, over this next year, just take time to really seek his wisdom, spend time in the word, grow, learn. If you have questions, ask somebody, find a friend or a mentor, start going to church, get plugged into a small group, find a group of women, even if you don't go on Sundays because you don't feel comfortable. Just find one person, find a study group, find somebody. Even you can watch YouTube, has tons of like Life Church and Evolution, and there's so many churches online that you can get plugged in with and not even leave your home. Although it's important to find that connection with people. It's life-giving. So seek his wisdom this year. Raise your families in him. Teach your kids. Support, love, and pray for your husband through willful submission. And I know that that's another hot button topic, and I'm going to talk about that sometime because I'm really passionate about what does submission mean, because it doesn't mean what a lot of people think it does. It's really, there's a lot of power in submission, ladies. So anyway, do all of these things. Use your God-given gifts to share him, with other people. Talk about how he's working in your life. Share your testimony. It's really powerful. When we do these things, we're honoring God. And if we keep our mouth shut when we do have this understanding of God and his power and his glory, then we're not doing our part. We're not fulfilling the Great Commission and our responsibility as a Christian woman. So get out there, share him today, share him with as many people as you can. Be a light, love on people. There's just a lot of sadness and hurt and struggle in this world, and people need comfort. And there's only one place for that. So help them find it. All right, I hope that this has been encouraging to you. I just hope that you have the best year. I hope that we can stay connected. And I'm really excited about all that's coming, all that I have planned for myself this year. And I really want to encourage you to be really targeted this year. My word this year is aim. I want to really focus in. I feel like there's always a lot of stuff that I'm juggling, and I want to really do well with certain things instead of just kind of doing okay with a lot. So anyway, one thing I want to do really well with is continuing to grow in the Bible, in the Word, and sharing that with other people. So I encourage you to do the same. I hope you have the greatest day, the best week. Go out and be a light, and I will talk with you soon.